Segment 3, Gold and Black Live. Tom Dienhart. The room just got smarter as we talk about Purdue football heading into Iowa. And of course, it's been a weird. Every season is strange, and COVID world is strange. Purdue's injury run has been strange, Tom. And yet Jeff Brom on Thursday night at least made a definitive discussion about Corey Trice being out for the season. It just seems like an interesting and yet difficult pattern that Purdue has fallen into with respect to injuries.
Yeah, I was thinking about some point just trying to compile a list of Purdue's this year, Alan. It's almost dizzying. You need a list to keep up with it, which is, I guess, sad. You hate to have a team where you suffer myriad injuries like that, but that's Purdue's plight. And that's been Purdue's plight for a few years, it seems like, doesn't it? But yeah, just of recent vintage, I guess, like you alluded to, Alan. Thursday after practice, Jeff Brom broke the news that Corey Trice, their number one cornerback, a potential All Big Ten guy, suffered an ACL injury in practice. He's going to miss the rest of the year. So, of course, Trice had already been out for the last 3 games with an ankle injury. He dressed for the Minnesota game, didn't play. The expectation was that he was going to finally get back on the field here against Iowa. That's not going to happen now. So Purdue's learned to live without Trice, for what that's worth, Alan. They know they got Jamari Brown as a replacement. He's been competent. Dedrick Mackey's the other corner. They moved Sanusi Kane from safety to cornerback. Cam Allen, the starting safety, can play cornerback if needed. Redshirt freshman Anthony Romp as a cornerback. So they've got some other options there, but they've been thin at that position all year. And they'll continue to be thin, obviously. And then I guess the real curveball, Alan, was Jeff Brom said that the true freshman running back, Jaquez Cross, won't play because of personal reasons.
Yeah.
And that to me, that's probably a bigger story than Corey Trice, honestly. You're looking at Allen having King Doerue, who's the number one running back, was last week. Had a good game, 95 yards rushing. But after King Doerue, buddy, you're looking at 3 walk-ons. You're looking at Dylan Downing, kid from Carmel, from UNLV. You're looking at, these are deep cuts. Devin Mockabee, a true freshman walk-on corner, a running back. And you're looking at Caleb Leahy, a shirt freshman from Illinois. So, and that's, I couldn't sleep if I was a coach. No offense to the players, but they're just not ready.
Yeah.
And this Big Ten football, this is Iowa, this is Kinnick Stadium, Alan. So you pray that King Doerue's healthy. And Alan, there's always the possibility King Doerue won't play, but Jeff Brom said that he's going to be okay. King Doerue manages this health issue he has week to week. I asked Coach Brom about, is he going to be ready to go? And he seemed to think King's going to be okay. So that's good news. Dylan Downing, he can help you out, obviously, but still, he falls off quickly there. We may finally really see some wide receivers maybe get involved if they need be. A guy like Jackson Anthrop. So long story short, boy, they're going to Iowa City with a very thin core running backs.
And the coach has got to keep his team motivated and be fired up about this opportunity. I mean, Purdue has to hit it on the screws if it's going to win tomorrow. I mean, that's stating the obvious. You just can't. It can't be an average performance. You can't be down on your luck, so to speak, or down in the dumps too. I don't sense that they are. I have nothing that tells me that they are. But it's just really going to be a challenge. I thought the other question I asked, which I'm glad you asked, that Aiden O'Connell is in fact the starting quarterback. I mean, that there's no question about that. And that wasn't 100% clear to me, just based on what happened at the end of the game against Minnesota. So that is another thing that you have to think, if Purdue is going to win tomorrow, or at least can make it a 4-quarter game, that Aiden O'Connell is going to have to find David Bell early, and Payne Durham. If Payne Durham is playing, which we assume, I guess, is the case, Purdue's going to have to be able to get the ball downfield, throwing the football. You're not necessarily going to need a lot of points against Iowa, but you need to score enough to give yourself a chance. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think you summed it up perfectly there as far as a recipe to beat Iowa. And you're right, Payne Durham, that is a bit of good injury news, Alan, that you talked about. Payne Durham is going to be back, it appears, a huge addition to the offense. Obviously, has 3 touchdown catches more than any other Big Ten tight end. We all know his value to this offense, especially in the red zone over the middle on 3rd down. So he's a quarterback's best friend, and the quarterbacks trust him. So that's a nice weapon. So yeah, passing game wise, getting back to Aiden O'Connell, you were right. There was some I guess low level murmur out there that was Aiden O'Connell going to be the quarterback. I was a little miffed by it, but so that's why I posed the question. And Jeff Brom, of course, emphatically said that yes, Aiden is the #1 quarterback. He's got to be, Alan. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
He's the best passer they've got, and that's Purdue's best means for victory every Saturday. You got to go with Aiden O'Connell. And you're right. They're going to probably have to throw up 40 or 50 times, I think. We talked about the challenges of the run game. And, Aiden can throw it. And Alan, Jeff Brom's Purdue teams have beaten Kirk Ferentz 3 times. And on each instance, they've done it with throws down the field, right?
Yeah.
2017, Anthony Mahongo was a star. 2018, Terry Wright was a star. Last year, Alan, David Bell was a star pass catcher against Iowa. So again, you can't try to be like Iowa and beat Iowa.
Yeah.
You got to attack. And again, that's what Purdue's probably going to do. And Aiden O'Connell is the best quarterback to do that.
One interesting thing, though, and Brom talked about it earlier in the week, is the fact that they're hard to throw over top. And even last year, with all the catches that Bell had, Purdue's longest reception was 22 yards in that win. At home in front of no fans, that 24-20 win. They did it with Xander Horvath running the football and David Bell catching and making stops. You would think conventional wisdom says if they don't get something deeper than 22 yards, it's going to be a long day in Iowa at Kinnick Stadium in Iowa, because you're right. In 2018 and 17, Purdue was able to get the ball over the top on a number of occasions.
Yeah, Purdue knows Iowa knows what it wants to do, right?
Yeah,
and they did a pretty good job of sitting on it last year. Purdue still was able to win, I think, 24-20.
Yeah.
Big plays are going to be hard to come by again, Alan, but you still have to take your shots. You hope for missed assignments, missed tackles. Usually just plain old mistakes people make, Alan.
Yeah.
That lead to good fortune. And the one thing to keep an eye on is Iowa's best cornerback is out, Riley Moss. They've got a 5'10" junior named Terry Joseph, who's going to take over his spot. I'm sure the Purdue staff is well aware of that.
Yeah.
They're going to come after the guy and make him show that, hey, can you cover our guys? So, and, they're Purdue's going to have some wrinkles, I'm sure. And Alan, I've talked about it for a couple of weeks now. One of those wrinkles I think that needs to be accentuated is the use of Austin Burton. If you're the head coach and you say to yourself, who do we have? I can't go pick anybody up now. I can't sign a free agent. Who's on my bench that can maybe actually spark my red zone offense, just spark my offense? And the only guy there in my mind is Austin Burton, Alan. And we saw Austin Burton take 3 snaps against Minnesota. He ran all 3 times. I guess I'm really hoping we see more of Austin Burton. And we see colleges all across the country use that change of pace quarterback. And in the NFL, Alan, think about the Saints, Drew Brees and Taysom Hill. They bring in Taysom Hill. And Austin Burton's much more than just a runner, too. You can do things throwing the ball with him as well. He's somebody that defenses have to account for because he can run the ball.
Yeah.
So I guess, like I said, I'm very interested to see if his role gets expanded moving forward here, just to give that offense another dimension. And defense is something else to think about.
Well, and the fact that you don't have any running backs. I mean, or you do, but you're not exactly flush with guys who can run the football from a health standpoint. I mean, when King Daru is on the ledge, you never know for sure, though it sounds like he's going to play and played well last week. So all those factors make for a really interesting dynamic. And, you have to look at it and say, well, gosh, you all that up, and how does Purdue have a chance? And yet, we can't account for what everybody else and what all the defensive guys think about their opportunity to play against on a big stage, which is just going to be a big stage. Obviously, when you play the number 2 team in the country and not many people giving you a chance, you have to find a way to rise up. And Jeff Brom and company has got to get his guys ready to do that. And that's going to be the challenge, I would think, tomorrow at 3:30.
Yeah, just there's no pressure, Alan.
Right.
It's all on Iowa. They're 6-0. They're number 2 in the country, like you talked about. They're at home. They're supposed to win. They're a double-digit favorite. And Purdue can play loose and free and have fun. And who knows? Who knows? You've
Yeah.
been a long time, seen a lot of crazy things happen in football games. Where heck, every Saturday night, Alan, I'm sitting watching the scoreboard show late at night, and I'm rubbing my head saying, "How did that
Yeah.
happen?" So you don't know. That's why they play the games. That's why we all love the sports, right? And great opportunity for Purdue, like you said, to get a huge victory, the biggest road victory for Purdue since 1974 at Notre Dame.
Right, 74 Notre Dame, or in the Big Ten, they haven't beaten a top 5 team since literally 57 years ago. Of course, that game against Michigan back on October 17th, 1964. That's even before you were born. So
I'll say this: this Iowa team, no disrespect, it's not a juggernaut.
Yeah, they're beatable.
Yeah, it's a beatable Iowa team. I think everybody realizes that's probably not really the number 2 team in the country, but they've beaten a lot of impressive teams, Alan. Obviously, Iowa State, Penn State. When Indiana was ranked highly the first game of the year, they annihilated them. Opportunistic's been the key for them. You talked about takeaways, 20 takeaways, 16 interceptions, number 1 in the country in both those categories. At the other end of the spectrum, there's Purdue, Alan, dead last in America with his 2 takeaways. Yeah. Maybe this is the weekend Iowa coughs up the ball 4 or 5 times. Purdue scores a defensive touchdown, then you got a ball game, right?
Yeah, I think it goes without saying you better be at least even in that category if you can be, if you're Purdue, because Iowa will beat you to death, so to speak, with ball control and things that they do well. Just hanging on to the football. I think they average 34 minutes a game in time of possession or close to it. That will be a factor all the way through. And I think it's going to be interesting. I think Purdue has a real opportunity tomorrow, but everything's going to have to fall right for that to happen. So predictions will be on the site here. They may be on the site as of now. Tom will be making his way to Iowa City for all the coverage. And I think it's going to be it'll keep your attention tomorrow afternoon. We also obviously will have coverage from the Purdue men's basketball scrimmage as well on the site. So Tom, safe travels. We'll see how things play out. We always do, and we want to thank our sponsors too. Triple X on the hill, but on the level, a Purdue tradition since 1929. Hilton Garden Inn, when tomorrow's a big day. State HDI tonight, and of course, State Farm agent Trent Johnson at TrentIsMyAgent.com. Also, thanks to Gordon and the good folks at WLFI for putting all this together. We appreciate that. Also, thanks to Dave Shondell and Mark Herman, our guests in segment 1 and 2. Dave Shondell, huge match tonight at Ohio State. Mark Herman made a career out of playing against Iowa. We talked about that, and they need a Mark Herman type performance. I think his 439-yard performance against the Hawkeyes as a senior was a record at the time, or close to it. Purdue needs that type of performance, I would think, to get the job done tomorrow. So, Tom, safe travels. Have a great weekend, everybody. And we will be back next week for another edition of Gold and Black Live.